Just a moment to introduce myself. I'm Samara Donald, and I lead Enterprise and Partner Marketing here at Netlify. Just wanted to set up the session today in the context of one thing we've heard really consistently from our customers, in particular the developers that use Netlify, is that, look, developers just want to use the tools that they want to use. But that becomes much easier if we can help the stakeholders in organizations really understand the value that the platform is bringing to the whole organization. So this is really where we came up with this session today. And I think this is especially true for larger organizations who have a lot of stakeholders. In fact, IDG estimates that the average number of stakeholders in large organizations for technical decisions is somewhere in the order of 20. So a lot of different stakeholders from different functions, finance, marketing, AppSec, et cetera. And so we're really hopeful that this session will be particularly relevant if you're in a larger organization, but will really help you with some of the tools and resources to present that business case to the rest of your organization. Before I introduce our fabulous speakers for today, I just wanted to go through a couple of housekeeping items. So we've got a slide on this. Great. So you're in listen-only mode, and that will maintain for the rest of the session. We are recording, and we'll send out an email following with the link to the on-demand session if you'd like to watch and rewatch or share with your stakeholders, perhaps. We will have some Q&A at the end with our speakers, and so throughout the session, please feel free to add your questions into the Q&A, and we'll be getting to those at the end. And then just a final note, we have a Jamstack code of conduct for the community. Please respect that and just keep everything clean and safe for everybody. And with that, I am so pleased to welcome our speakers today. Emma Conroy from Forrester is joining us, who conducted the study, and then Marcus Bragg, our COO, who'll be helping showcase some of our customer examples that really highlight the points in the study. So with that, welcome Emma and Marcus.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Total Economic Impact of Netlify overview. Thank you, Samara, and the whole Netlify team for having me here today to speak about the study. My name is Emma Conroy. As Samara said, I am a consultant at Forrester on the Total Economic Impact team, which is a team of business value experts that helps organizations quantify and articulate the impact of any investment. And I'm incredibly pleased to share with you today the results of this study, which was commissioned by Netlify. I'm here alongside Marcus Bragg, Chief Operating Officer at Netlify, who will start us off with an introduction to Netlify to give us some context for today's session.
Good morning, Emma, and thanks everyone for joining. Hello, my name is Marcus Bragg, and as Emma said, I am the COO at Netlify. I joined Netlify almost a year ago and couldn't be more excited about how Netlify is helping developers to build a better web. We're excited to share a lot of these findings from today, but a little about Netlify, which is a cloud-based native platform for building fast, scalable, and dynamic websites, e-commerce stores, and applications. We're really helping uniting an extensive ecosystem of technologies, services, and APIs into a single workflow. And Netlify is unlocking new levels of team productivity and performance, while of course saving time, money, and delivering a better customer experience. You know, back in early 2015, our founders, Matt and Chris, noticed that the foundation of the web was changing and a new approach and architecture was required to keep teams moving quickly as they took advantage of the API economy and the major innovations that were occurring in both browser and web infrastructure. We like to refer to this as the web development cloud. And Netlify was built for the developer community to adopt these new architectural principles. What Netlify does is bring every step of the development workflow into a single platform, making it easier for teams to collaborate. Now, as pioneers of the Jamstack, Java API and markup, Netlify brings together all the modern frameworks, serverless functions, edge computing into a single platform to deliver unmatched user experiences. We're happy that millions of developers and businesses today build on Netlify. From very large Fortune 500 companies like Unilever and SAP to companies changing our digital experiences like Shopify and Twilio. So we're just so happy to have all of these great brands as part of the Netlify family. And with that, Emma, I'd like to hand it back to you.
So if once we get to the agenda slide, in terms of an agenda today, we would like to start with an overview of the TEI framework. We'll walk through some of the customer journey, and then we'll get to the return on investment calculation and the study results. And as Samara said, we'll end with a Q&A session. So what is TEI? Well, on the next slide, Samara, please. When we're talking about business case justifications for technology investments, Forrester understands that technology buying decision makers need a next level business case that goes beyond just a typical total cost of ownership or TCO analysis. In one of Forrester's many surveys, we learned that over 90% of decision makers look for proof of an investment's total return, and this is where the total economic impact methodology comes in. The total economic impact methodology goes beyond the total cost of ownership by covering 4 pillars. Next slide, please. So the total economic impact methodology covers benefits. So just as you expect, this is any positive impact from an investment like increased revenue, but also cost savings, productivity improvements, things like customer employee experience, so unquantified or qualitative benefits, software costs, but also professional service costs, training or labor costs. Flexibility, which captures the possibilities that an organization unlocks in the future by making an investment today. And then risk. So what factors or barriers might make some organizations realize a different investment result or not realize an investment's full potential. And Forrester makes risk adjustments to all the benefits in the study to account for these risk factors. So the full study aims to help companies like yours evaluate the potential return on investment for their own organizations. So we speak to a real current customer of Netlify's and use that data as a basis for our model. And ultimately, we want you to be able to take the results you hear today and see in the full case study, the framework and the calculation tables, so you can begin considering how you can make a business case justification for Netlify for your own organization. So like I said, Forrester interviewed a current enterprise customer that uses Netlify to build and deploy websites and applications. This customer is a global company headquartered in the UK with an annual revenue of $1.5 billion and 2,400 employees that provide support services to customers. And prior to their investment in Netlify, the organization worked with a monolithic content management system, or CMS, to manage their dynamic site. And their web development process included both their development team and their IT team on the back end. And in that prior environment, they faced some specific pain points, including a slow speed of iteration and deployment, as the legacy CMS used a flow process that took weeks to deploy a simple page, delaying other processes and making other actions like A/B split testing more challenging. Poor placement on search engine rankings, which was largely due to site latency. Low developer agility, as the legacy CMS required heavy coordination between the dev team and the IT team, and developers had low visibility into each other's work streams. And finally, expensive and hard to find expertise, as building web projects with the previous solution required highly specialized developer knowledge. As the senior front-end developer noted here in this quote on the right, before web development was handled by our back-end IT team, so there was a bit of a disconnect between the content folks on it was taking too long to get a simple page up. And now, as I talk through the customer's objectives for their investment in Netlify, I'd like to bring Marcus back to the stage. So for Netlify included to serve up static pages as fast as possible, to improve their search engine rankings, and to publish 80 blog posts per month, up from the 2 per month they were publishing before Netlify. And along with their decision to implement Netlify, the organization migrated to the Jamstack's decoupled web architecture, so they completely changed the way they built new sites and applications. This change allowed their developers to focus specifically on iterating static pages faster and improving site performance. And the organization chose Netlify to reach these objectives because they knew Netlify was committed to the same goals of lightning-fast page speeds and improved developer agility and control. As the Vice President of Digital Experiences said, Not only did Netlify fully embrace static site generators, but they also had a great story around their edge CDN, and they were just completely performance first in their mission.
All right, thanks, Emma. I know we're trying to get your camera, so just for all of our viewers, we're working on getting Emma back live there, but we are excited to go over a bunch of this as we're looking at this. And, you know, there's common themes that we hear from many of our customers, from large enterprises to educational institutions to startups alike. And as we worked with thousands of companies of all sizes and industries move their web properties to this new modern architecture, we've heard from them about the positive impact on their business outcomes. Beyond developer productivity and better experience, by using Netlify, these web leaders have been able to quickly hire and source these developers more cost effectively. So it's been very exciting.
So thank you, Marcus. Yes, we're working on video. There might be a slight chance, I think, that I leave and rejoin, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But for now, I'd like to move to the kind of executive summary of Forrester's analysis here. So based on Forrester's analysis, the customer experienced a 3-year ROI of 151%. If we can move to the next slide there, please. And present value benefits of $2.5 million. This amounts to a net present value, so just total benefits minus total costs, of $1.48 million and a 9-month payback period. And this quote on the right makes it clear that the investment in Netlify was a great financial decision for the interviewed customer, who said, "From our traffic drivers, keyword volume and rankings, and appearing on the first page of Google search results to our vertical and our business, Netlify has been a really great success story across the board." So I'm sure you're thinking, okay, great, but how did you get to these numbers? Well, Forrester quantified 5 key benefits that the customer described. We have savings from increased web project velocity, savings from developer and IT team efficiencies, savings from lowered contract labor costs, additional revenue from increased site traffic, and additional revenue from an increased conversion rate. And these benefits, again, total to a present value of about $2.5 million over 3 years. And in the actual study, we'll break down the calculations for each benefit into a financial framework that's transparent and easy to understand. And our hope is that you read a copy of the study and use the framework we've developed to create your own business case analysis for Netlify. But in the meantime, we'll review an overview of the 5 benefits today. The first outcome shared with Forrester was improved time to market, or the ability for the digital marketing team to launch a landing page a staggering 89% faster. Development and launch time decreased from 4 to 6 weeks to just 2 to 3 days with Netlify, saving about $13,000 on average per launch. This increase in development velocity was realized through a simplified, automated workflow and deployment process that greatly reduced change management and bureaucracy the customer had faced with their previous software. Back to you, Marcus.
And 4 to 6 weeks sounds like a long time to launch a single page, but it isn't too far out of the ordinary for many of our enterprise customers that we see before they implement Netlify. And that's where we'd like to work with our customers to create these efficiencies across the entire organization, from design to development to deployment. Recently, we were speaking with one of our marketing department customers from one of the largest companies in the world. They had spent millions on a monolithic platform that had been part of a legacy choice before to deliver improved customer experiences to their customers. The marketing team would complete the new content only to kick off a 32 business day process of checks and balances to get that content to market. I mean, for example, for reference, in China in 2015, a 57-story skyscraper was erected in only 19 days. So it was faster to construct a skyscraper than it was for this Fortune 10 company to actually deploy a new site. We had another client that shifted from in-office approach to remote office, which we're also familiar with these days, where asynchronous work was essential. Designers and developers who used to sit side by side and make immediate tweaks couldn't do that any longer. So with our collaborative deploy previews functionality, a live version of the site is deployed automatically after build, and designers can write directly on the dock and even play with live CSS to test out those changes. Again, enabling continued collaboration and performance.
Thank you, Marcus, and glad to be back.
Welcome back,
on
Emma.
video here. Yep.
Yeah, we're great to see
yep.
you.
Thank you. All right. So getting back to the benefits from this study, our second benefit here quantifies the efficiencies the customer gained with their developer and IT teams, both as they work together and also separately. So this happened in a couple ways. First, Netlify's decoupled architecture simplified their cross-team work streams and allowed the dev and IT teams to parallel path their work. The interviewees noted that their developer team was more agile and more nimble than they were before Netlify because they could customize the HTML portions of their site's code, make pull requests central to their process, and streamline the flow from Git push to production deployment. As the VP of Digital Experiences said here, with Jamstack and Netlify, you have all the tools in your toolbox instead of 2/3 of them. And on the IT side, Netlify's simplified deployment freed team members from processes that previously required their involvement, like split testing and back-end coding.
You know, Emma, we often hear that front-end teams are blocked by IT or DevOps or SRE availability. And it's not because the SREs don't want to help. It's just that there's not enough hours in the day to get all this done. One of our enterprise clients told us how they actually abandoned their complex AWS setup and moved to Netlify. And he had said when we use AWS, it would take hours at a minimum for that pull request approval for their Terraform configurations and SRE capacity. And so they abandoned that for Netlify, where now it only takes 15 minutes. Again, this enables IT, DevOps, SRE teams really to focus on the optimizations. And again, we're making everyone more productive and more efficient across the organization.
That's a great story, Marcus. Thank you. Our third quantified benefit focuses on the savings that the customer realized through a reduced direct cost of labor from the customer's contracted developers. So after moving to Netlify, the organization hired developers with a more generalized skill set to do equivalent work, and so they were able to draw from a much larger pool of talent at a lower cost per contracted developer hour. As the VP said, it's like going from having to hire board-certified surgeons to being able to hire anyone who's fresh out of med school. The customer went from hiring at rates of $150 to $300 per hour to hourly rates of just $40 to $70, saving $80 to $260 per hour for the same outcome. And in the study, Forrester modeled the conservative end of this range. And this sounds like a crazy cost savings here, but I think this is something that isn't too uncommon for customers of Netlify. Is that right, Marcus?
Yeah, again, this is something we see very often where the pipeline gets so complex and manual steps are required, and teams are relying on this outsourcing model. And this is one of the reasons the Jamstack approach is so successful because JavaScript, HTML, CSS, these are all so popular. And it's simply easier to find developers, professional developers that have worked with JavaScript and versus what it takes to go out and find people that are skilled in the monolithic frameworks. You know, for the 9th year in a row, JavaScript is the most commonly used programming language. 3 times as many professional developers have done extensive development work over the past year in JavaScript than in legacy PHP.
Oh. Moving on here, our last 2 benefits are driven not through cost savings, but by increased revenue. So here, Netlify increased the organization's site performance and speed, completely meeting the organization's goal of improved Google Lighthouse site speed rankings, and also increasing site visits by 10%. And page load scores jumped significantly on both the desktop and the mobile sites with Netlify. And so the domain's ranked keywords rose from just over 43,000 to over 212,000 in 18 months. This increase in page rankings led to additional site visitors, so they brought in new potential customers and resulted in additional revenue in that way. And additionally, Netlify's technical efficiencies and the speed of deployment velocity allowed for the organization to publish 50 times as much blog content on a regular basis, so further increasing traffic to the main site and bringing in new customers that way. And together, these gains brought in 18,000 new customers per year.
You know, and our developers know Google rewards sites that are fast with higher traffic ranking, higher rankings, and which then drives more visitors, which is what we want, right? Because when more people to our site, more people to our service, and hopefully more revenue is part of this. And so, without these productivity improvements in content workflow, our client could have never published 100 blogs per month, which further increased this traffic. One of our customers, Backlinko, is one of the world's top websites for SEO tips and training. They moved from WordPress, a more monolithic approach, to the Jamstack on Netlify because they recognize that these performance is becoming increasingly more important to SEO. Again, you're seeing a lot of that here in the study.
Yep, exactly. I know Forrester's seen a lot more questions fielded from clients around SEO in the past couple of years than we ever have before. So definitely something where you want to keep a focus on, and performance is absolutely the way to do that. So our final quantified benefit comes from a conversion rate increase that was enabled by Netlify in a couple of ways. One, Netlify's combination of, again, that faster page launch velocity, ease of use, and elimination of IT participation enabled their team to conduct 3 to 4 times as much A/B split testing as they were before in the same amount of time. So this empowered the organization to optimize their site at a much faster rate and increased the customer conversion rate in that way. And secondly, reduced latency across the website also contributed to a better user experience, so that aided conversion as well. And this total conversion rate increase of over 2% translates to an additional just under 4,000 new customers per year. And you can see how this plays out on the right there, with the VP of Digital Experiences calling Netlify a significant enabler of success for their organization.
We were really excited to partner with Pan Macmillan, another customer, one of the largest book publishers in the UK, as we know. They didn't make a single change to their site UX. And even with that, by purely moving, we saw speed improvements to the site via the alignment and partnership with Netlify. And they saw a 25% increase in clicks to retailers, again, driving better conversion rates. So it was great to see. It didn't even have to have a full brand overhaul to see performance improvements.
Great. As we get to the qualitative benefits of here of Netlify, we're talking about additional successes that the customer shared with Forrester, but that Forrester was unable to quantify for this study. So they're included in the study as qualitative benefits here. And these benefits include one, architectural improvements to the website, as Netlify provided a variety of features that improved, site organization, analytics tracking, and visitor experience. Two, Netlify provided direct access to industry expertise. So starting with Netlify's origins with Matt Bielman, who coined the term Jamstack and positioned as the first infrastructure provider native to the Jamstack, Netlify is offering customers highly sophisticated support, not just on its own product, but also on the underlying architecture and approach that it was founded on. And this is apparent here in the quote on the right, as the customer was able to ask the foremost expert on a particular platform they were using to validate their build approach. And it was their relationship with Netlify that gave them that access. The third qualitative benefit is cost savings from retiring legacy software, as the customer's investment in Netlify allowed for reduced or eliminating spending on a previous or alternative web development and delivery solutions. Fourth, improved web security through reduced risk of data breaches and site downtime, because pre-rendered content has a reduced attack surface and static deployment is less vulnerable than continuously deployed content. Fifth is faster and easier compliance and security checks. So as an SOC 2 Type 2 compliant vendor, Netlify let the organization skip the review of a 200 plus page security questionnaire that they had been prepared to have to deal with, and heed them through ongoing security checks with a much lighter lift from the security team of the customers. And finally, we have easier talent acquisition. So in addition to the direct cost savings through the lower hourly rate paid to Netlify developers that we mentioned earlier, the organization could also just draw talent from a larger pool and find developers more easily and more quickly with Netlify.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that it's easier to recruit, onboard, and retain your developers when they have the tool set that makes them happy. We know in today's developer-centric world, it's not going to be a top-down approach, right? Developers are going to bring in the tools they want, and then we want to continue to help to connect on, okay, how do these still drive business value and ROI, so those developers can keep using those tools. One of our customers, B2B software public company, they shared a testimonial with us that Netlify is the tool that everybody at every company wants to use. And he went on to say, honestly, we only bought Netlify because it's a great recruiting tactic for developers. So it was a cute story they shared with us.
That is a great story. So moving on to the costs here, the customer faced two different types of costs with their investment. So Netlify licensing fees, and then also the labor costs, both over a 9-month implementation period to Netlify and the Jamstack architecture, but also then to support ongoing management of Netlify. So the first cost, this licensing fee, is billed monthly, and it includes 7 developer seats, 24/7 engineering support, account management services, and then also covers additional costs that the organization might have faced otherwise, like bandwidth overage charges. The total cost of Netlify license plus the implementation and management labor here totaled to a present value of just under $1 million over those 3 years.
Yeah, what we see and is very common is only a very small portion of the time is actually spent on implementing Netlify. Most of the time is moving kind of their large monolithic, legacy architecture to the Jamstack architecture. So the good news here is that if you have the world-leading Jamstack experts at your disposal, which we have for you, or are available as part of our Jamstack community, you can progressively migrate at your own pace. One great example of this, we have a major e-commerce site customer that's moving to the Jamstack architecture, and they actually just started by moving over some simple components like the terms and conditions page, and then progressively, step by step, as they had more capacity in their organization, migrated the entire site. So you can start all in, you can start piece by piece. It's really very flexible based on the organization's needs.
That's a great transition here to our flexibility benefits, Marcus. So as I think I mentioned earlier, flexibility, as according to Forrester, represents the ability for an organization to do something in the future cheaper, better, or faster because of a prior investment in a technology. And so some of the flexibility benefits that Netlify provides are just flexibility with future software decisions and reduced integration costs when changing other technology providers, because Netlify is tech and framework agnostic. Also, we have the delivery of a more optimized end user experience, more efficient team coordination as organizations expand Netlify to all teams and applications by centralizing web app building, as Marcus was saying. And the customer that we interviewed began that process. So they were already expanding their use of Netlify over time and had plans to continue to do so, with past and future expansion, including management of the site landing page, mobile development, as well as desktop. And they were rolling out the software to teams in Canada and Europe, as well as the US, where they started with Netlify. And they still believe that Netlify has a whole host of capabilities that they have yet to take advantage of, which included GDPR compliant analytics reporting, automatic SSL certificates, transactional SPAs, collaborative deploy previews, and automatic rollbacks. And one other thing was the customer noted that as a pre-approved vendor, Netlify kind of took away drag on doing some of these new things and blunted objectives that could have been raised against their suggestions because Netlify already had that in and had a really good experience with some of the teams that had already been working with it.
Yeah, we see kind of major breaking points with teams on monolithic sites very often when they want to internationalize their site or their web property. They've either got to install plugins that further slow down the development speed and deliver subpar user experience, or they end up just having to manually copy and paste one site to another. This client currently runs 3 separate sites, and with the new architecture, they can centralize and standardize components to get to market much faster in new regions, and which has massive implications to business growth, right? To focus on continuous innovation. One of our customers, Manscaped, a great site, an e-commerce client, is a good example of this. They actually talked about how pasting code from their US Shopify template to their German Shopify template to their UK Shopify template caused a bunch of bugs. And the amount of time it took to make sure everything aligned, update URLs, share API secrets, it just became a mess and was a major reason they moved to headless with Netlify, simplifying all of that.
Thank you, Marcus. And I think we're nearing the end here. So just to summarize Forrester's results one last time, we found a net present value of Netlify of $1.5 million and an ROI of 151%. And I'll leave you with this last quote here that speaks to one of those flexibility benefits we just mentioned, as Marcus was talking about as well, where expanding the use of Netlify across teams, use cases, and features can be really beneficial. So here the VP of Digital Experiences said, I've been very impressed. Every time I've gone to Netlify and said, do you guys also support this? Or do your other customers use it for that? Or do you have a library or plugin that does this? The answer has always been yes. So I hope you enjoyed this summary. And now I would definitely urge you to go out and read the full study yourself, and so you can build your own business case for Netlify. Thank you. And I think we're now moving on to the Q&A portion.
We are. Thank you so much, Emma and Marcus, for that fantastic set of insights. We will have in just right after the Q&A, I'm going to give you all a QR code for a link to the study, and as well, we'll be sending that out in email. So don't worry, you'll get the link to the full study that Emma's referring to. But now let's take a couple of questions from the audience here. We have a couple questions already, and I think both of these right now are for Marcus.
Yes.
The first question was, are there any case studies using Netlify for deploying on an intranet? And Marcus, I know, for example, our customer Twilio, I think, uses Netlify for a bit of an intranet and doc sites, etc. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that case study.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a very common use case, certainly in developer-run orgs, to use it as either the inclusive intranet or part of other intranet tools. Of course, Netlify runs on Netlify, so our internal intranet is a doc site where we talk about all of our information from holidays and policies, and teams enable all of their department summaries and overviews. So it's a great use case internally. And again, whether if you're a development org, and that's very native to how you're working, or whether you've got some centralized content teams that are helping on the intranet design and execution, super simple and easy, for how that's managed and run internally. We'd be happy to talk about that more.
Yes, definitely. Call us for a demo, right? We love demoing. Awesome. Okay, the next question, I think also one for you, Marcus, although I'm not sure if this came up in the actual study, but more like about from the network point of view, right? So when we think about the benefits and how do we minimize concerns of that stakeholder that might be in the networking team. My guess is this would be referring to, some of our network, any network latency or uptime, our SLAs on uptime, etc.
I
Um,
will let Marcus handle
yeah,
this as the
sure.
actual product expert here.
Absolutely. And, so from a legacy network point of view, what benefits does Netlify add to that later? Well, because, essentially we're managing everything from kind of pull request to production and deploying that out to the world. We're taking that off the hands in many cases. Again, not knowing the exact specifics of that legacy network. A great way to do this is just to set up a trial account at no cost. We could take a couple pages, work with you, run those side by side, look at time to first byte and things like that, and then work with your network team to see if this adds value and simplifies it or not. It's a great way to prove it out at no cost.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I know there's a ton of great info just even on our basic site about network commitments. Okay, let me grab this one for you, Emma. Would you mind explaining ROI and NPV and maybe the difference between them?
Sure. So ROI is the return on investment, and that just demonstrates, whether an investment pays off based on, the amount of investment that you're putting into that, the cost that you're putting into that investment. So an ROI of 0% means you're breaking even. You're getting as much out of the investment as you put into it. So everything above 0%, any positive ROI number means that your investment is making you more money than it cost you. So here, we modeled the ROI and NPV on a three-year model, and all of the numbers in the study are adjusted to be in their present value to account for the time value of money. So by the end of year 3, we're saying that the customer has basically made 151% more than their investment cost them altogether.
Excellent. And I'm guessing there are some, good sort of guidelines in the full study that talk about how a more specific customers might be able to work in the kind of logic to their own specific situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have full calculation tables in the study that go through all the quantified benefits and costs, and they show, where these calculations are coming from, where the data is coming from. So it should be set up in a way that allows you to kind of just, adjust some of the line items to better fit your own organization. And then the math is pretty simple. You'll be able to come out with kind of a personalized ROI for your own organization.
Excellent. That's such a great tool, such a great resource. Fantastic. Okay, one further, probably for you, Emma, but I'm sure, Marcus, you have some thoughts here too. And I know, Marcus, you shared throughout the presentation today some additional proof points or case studies with customers that we have that highlight some of these benefits. But have we seen these benefits, apply to other customers? I know this study was on one particular customer, a real deep dive. But what do we see across the board with customers?
Yeah, that's great. You commonly see, again, we shared today a lot about the ability to just deploy faster as you look at in today's world, whether the consumers or customers of your company and in our Instagram and YouTube and TikTok world of short attention spans, we need to be able to deploy faster and keep that content fresh. So we constantly see in large enterprise taking months to deploy new campaigns, the ability for marketing orgs to run more frequent seasonal campaigns to drive revenue. Pan Macmillan, not only did they see an increase in actually getting more sites out, they saw a 29% increase in SEO. Sites loaded 8 times faster. We've all seen the studies out there of how quickly, if we're on our phone or on the computer, how fast we'll leave and move to another site if that page doesn't load fast enough as part of that. We constantly see benefits of 10, 15, 25% increases in conversion rate as well. So again, if it's the developers on this call loving the tools and wanting the new stack, but then going to the head of marketing or CMO and talking about revenue conversion, we've got lots of great case studies online to talk about that. If it's business teams looking for the transformation and it's more about productivity and enabling the org to be more agile with their customers and their marketing, their e-commerce sites, their internal apps, we've got lots of case studies on that.
Very good. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to call this one out. I don't know if we've got the right folks in the call to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway about DDoS.
Yeah.
DDoS migration, SLAs based on DDoS attacks, and is it tied to a certain plan that we have?
Yeah, so as part of our enterprise plan, we've got our accelerated support on 24/7 there. We've got the DDoS mitigation. That's part of our amazing SRE team that works to take care of our customers every day. So we'd love to talk to you about those specific needs and is included as part of our enterprise plan offerings.
Excellent. Thanks for that. All right, the questions keep coming. That's great. Do we know anything about comparative costs for the large versus the large cloud providers? This particular question was asking about AWS. And for example, comparative costs, is it generally cheaper on Netlify if we just looked face to face at an AWS bill and a Netlify bill?
Great question. We see that a lot. I kind of, I talk a lot about AWS being like if you're going to build a house at Home Depot, right? It's like if you know what aisle to walk down and where to get the wood and the nails and the hammer and all of that, that's great and it can be very rewarding. But and you're going to need your front end developer, you're going to need your back end developer, and you're going to need DevOps to go execute on all of that. With Netlify, as I said, as we look to unite this Jamstack ecosystem of tools, right? So you're bringing your framework. You're bringing your CMS, you're bringing your e-commerce, you're integrating your your observability tools, you're integrating your team workflow tools, you're integrating your designers into that process. Having to spend all the time to do that on your own versus working in Netlify, where we can integrate those tools and those workflows for you, is going to save a lot of time and efficiency. So if you just quickly kind of step through what it would take to bring all of that together from pull request to production and then host it, you're just out of the gate going to save a lot of money and just a lot of simplicity. And then use those amazing back-end developers, DevOps teams, those SRE teams, allow them to do the advanced work and not get bogged down in a lot of this initial setup work and ongoing maintenance.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right, I'm going to grab this one. Emma Gray asks, Oh yeah, the study. Sorry, I was a little distracted by so many questions coming in, which is fantastic. The company that was deeply studied, I know it's anonymized, but Can we tell them whether it was B2B or B2C and what kind of the nature of that business was? And I think this particular person is looking to make a case in the B2B space and finding those two worlds quite different in terms of return on value.
Yeah, so the interviewed organization was B2C. It had kind of a marketplace organization, but I would absolutely not say that that precludes a B2B organization from using this framework in the same way. As I said, we do write out kind of where these numbers are coming from, where the assumptions are, so that you really can adjust those numbers so they better fit your organization. And even if we think about, just the larger quantified benefit categories that we talked about in this study, they, for the most part, will apply pretty directly to B2B as well, right? So that increased web project velocity, that's going to help anyone. Same thing with, developer and IT team efficiencies and those lower contract related costs. I think the bigger differences might come in on those last two benefits, which were both about increasing revenue, because there might be, slightly less of a direct connection there between the traffic conversion rate and actual new customer revenue generated that way. But even with those, it will obviously depend on your organization and your business. But even with those, things like the reduced latency, the just site performance overall that we're contributing to those factors are still going to have a benefit that you can kind of quantify for your business the same way. So I would say that yes, this was a B2C customer that we interviewed, but really the study is designed so that any organization can try to make it as close as possible to what they might experience.
Yeah, on our site, we have lots of great case studies. Medallia is another great, if you're a B2B software company, but again, in B2B space, right? They saw build times go, from 120 minutes per build down to 3 minutes, so a 40x improvement there. We see their sites also, as they reported back to us, a 50% increase in performance of that side as well. So yeah, you're gonna, regardless of whether you're B2B or B2C, we have customers across the gamut that are seeing value. Because again, you still have to connect all these tools. You still need front end, back end, DevOps, to do this, whether you're a B2C or B2B, and us enabling the performance and the productivity of those teams. Those values are consistent across organizations.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I encourage folks to check out tons of case studies. I think while they don't all have the ROI calculations, you can absolutely start to see some of the common trends on the B2B side and B2C side as alike. All right, I am going to, for the sake of time, we actually have 3 questions that actually appear quite in the similar realm. So I'm going to merge them into one. And this is really questions around all of this talk is really, for large enterprises, there are quite a few of them that are still on these monolithic platforms. And one viewer today is in all caps saying, why are they still on these monolithic? Doesn't that just kill the ROI? And really the question is, do we have to are we still educating about Jamstack and modern web over these legacy architectures? And if this ROI is so clear, why are large enterprises taking so long to migrate? Thoughts on that?
With any of this, it comes back to just people, process, and technology. And so, we see anytime you have people and a new process, there's change management. So that's kind of trying to, regardless, of how those works. And of course, with, again, having worked in very large organizations at the Fortune 10 level, I've seen how those solutions get in place, and the internal processes and approvals and things can make that challenging. One of the things that we continue to be excited to see is developers, though, are deciding and bringing in, and so great ways for organizations to start are on a new project, right? So if your organization is a little slower to adopt new technology, find that corner case, that internal use case. You can start very small, get live in weeks, and move from there. But again, we're always happy to connect you with other customers that have gone through this as we go through that. But in general, we're seeing the innovative developers are leading the way and using this on their own personal blog or their own personal site, and then that kind of naturally gets brought into the work environment as part of that. But we're happy to help in any way we can on how to change, the reasons to change, leveraging customer stories on either the technology stack, how we enable efficiencies, or on the business ROI outcome.
Yeah, awesome. And then the last 2 questions before we close up here, can we point the viewers toward any use cases or reference cases for user management as a use case? And then also one on, do we have any cases around government? I know we have state, local, federal type customers. Question is, do we have any public reference cases?
Yeah, the good news is any site, e-commerce store, app that is built on the web, and so if that user management use case is built on the web, we can assist you with that, and would love to understand the specifics of that more, with the solutions team. And then yes, on government, state, local, federal, we have lots of customers that are using that, both externally and internally. And we'd love to share those stories as well. Very common use case.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, both, so much for this very insightful information. And once again, we will now give you the QR code for the full study, as Emma referenced. There are a lot more details, tables, charts, what have you, in the study that you can use to start thinking about your own situation and how to make this business case to your stakeholders so that you can continue to use the tools that you love. So thank you once again, and please keep joining us for these sessions. We're delighted to continue to engage with you and this community. Thanks again, and have a fantastic rest of your day wherever you are in the world.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you all.